So, we recently got a neat new look at the 30th anniversary special set to debut on Netflix on April 19th. We only had pictures before, which were cool, but the full-on trailer really came out swinging with a particular kind of energy that I vibed with. Plot details are still a bit few and far between as of writing this, but I don't really mind that, since based on what we've been given here, I'm not entirely convinced that that will be the most important thing. And I guess we should also talk about the Cosmic Fury news/status quo shakeup while we're here. So we'll do both, I promise. A lot of my thoughts would naturally stay consistent from when the initial promotional pictures came to light, so I want to focus more on what was revealed. Now, this part wasn't actually in the trailer, but this special will feature the return of a souped-up Radbug, otherwise known as that one time Billy casually invented a flying car. And I honestly just love this thing because it always felt so quintessentially MMPR, where solutions, upgrades, and entire plot points get introduced at random and as needed, and they just make it work in their own uniquely charming way. But even then, it also succeeds in highlighting the best aspects of my favorite MMPR Ranger in Billy, since, absurdity aside, it does speak to the ingenuity he utilizes to solve problems. The problem in that particular episode, and some future ones, was an inability to teleport in the way the team usually would. So yeah, why not just make a send-up to the DeLorean and the Love Bug at the same time? For those of you closer to my age bracket or younger and thus have no idea what the latter thing is, half credit if Herbie Fully Loaded came to mind instead. So if we're gonna bring back the original, and in my estimation still the standard for nerdy Rangers, bringing back the Radbug I think does a great job at highlighting exactly why he was so valuable to the team in the first place. Another thing a couple people have noticed is the graveyard that they seem to be parked in front of. And all of us are likely thinking the exact same thing on that mark. For as neat a tribute episode to Tui Trang as Circuit Unsure was, this could be the first time that PR truly acknowledges the tragic passing of one of their own by way of an in-universe story beat. It seems to be what they're setting up here, and I really hope it happens, because Tui deserves something that special for a 30th anniversary of a show she was instrumental to and a trailblazer in representation for, and also because I think it would just make for a really great, really honest emotional touchpoint to say that even though not every Ranger could be here physically, both on the set and out of costume, what they meant to us as viewers and fans, and more importantly, what they meant to the people returning, that will never go away. Now, the follow-up thought that will also be on everyone's mind is what that will mean for Jason David Frank. We do see the Green Ranger fully suited up in the trailer, which will undeniably be hard to sit through for some, me included. But as far as I know, JDF at no point was meant to be in the special, even though we can now confirm that Tommy Oliver is. So they were always going to work around that by way of ADR magic, just like in the Beast Morpher crossover. But I am curious to see if their production cycle would have allowed them to add anything more concrete to the actual story to tribute the now 2 MMPR legends we've lost, or if the editing was already far too progressed when the news broke. I also say this to get out in front of anyone who does watch the special and ends up thinking they didn't do enough there, because you just know those people will come out the woodworks come April. So let it be known that if that aforementioned concrete thing isn't something they end up doing, it's because it wasn't feasible to do, not because they didn't want to do it. Which leads into another thing I wanted to touch on. The reason I like the trailer despite it not having a ton of plot details to dig into is because it really felt about the people there more than anything. They even got a quote from the writers that highlighted that exact focus. And since it is an anniversary and looks to be uncompromising on that front, none of the issues I've mentioned in breakdowns of recent seasons regarding arbitrary lore dumping will necessarily apply here. Though I am really curious how they're going to incorporate SPA. That's the one area I could see them potentially begging a lot more questions than they can answer, so we'll see. But beyond that, go all in with it. Hell, I'll be giggling like a schoolgirl if Billy even makes a passing mention of the Great Bukala escape. But assuming we can take the trailer at face value, the focus will be on the characters and the various interactions thereof, and that's exactly what I think it should prioritize. Now, the last thing I wanted to bring up for the time being is how Barbara Goodson is also returning, who most of you know as the voice of Rita Repulsa. The easy thing to do here would be to make her the return villain in an effort to align with the TV side of proceedings, in where Zed has become that for Dino Fury, and now Cosmic Fury has to pick up those pieces. But with SBA set to be a major thing, as well as a possible lead into the SBD we're all familiar with, and thus clearly acknowledging a bit of PR history, I do wonder if they'll actually go the Mystic Mother route here, with the true villain of the special yet to be revealed. That's just speculation on my part, of course, but I'd love that so much more. Not because I really want them to throw Mystic Force a bone, I'm not that big on the season one way or the other. But I would like the idea that in this anniversary special that will inevitably focus on how much these characters have grown and changed, that they might also prioritize how Rita's own evil ambitions eventually gave way to becoming a force for good in the realm of magic. And for everything else, we'll see how it plays out in April. Now, let's talk a bit about Cosmic Fury, as promised. So, those new suits. Yeah. Look, I'm not a design person, I barely understand how colors work, so I can't spend too much time on this beyond how a lot of people have said more or less what I would hear. But I will say it's clever that Javi is given an axe because he plays an axe. I live for that kind of corny wordplay. Here's something I can talk about, however. Emilia being promoted to the role of not just Red Ranger, but also apparently team leader? Odd, to say the least. Allow me to start by saying, yes, I get it. Hasbro really wanted to celebrate the supremely late milestone of the third first female Red ever and the fifth first female leader ever. Congrats on taking your representation notes from Disney. No, but seriously, I do get what this means to a lot of people, regardless of the qualifiers that surround it. That said, as a story element, it makes zero sense on the back end of a season that was already very scattershot with how Emilia was written. I'm not even entirely sure they knew what her job description was half the time. More interesting still is that there was already a female character present who took a lot of initiative, showed a lot of rough but able to be developed leadership qualities, and routinely took responsibility for her mistakes in ways Zayto never fully commits to. And yet, here we are. But even that would have been besides the point here, a point that many fellow Black fans such as Ginja Herb, Lupin J, Quasar X, Jinsaku, among several others, have already spoke up on, and you really should listen to what they have to say. They're all pretty stand-up dudes. Now, all of this, of course, comes with the caveat that I'll let the season play out and have a real final say then, especially since Zayto is quite literally still here. But there does exist a kind of precedent for the demotion of Black leaders in PR. I have mentioned how much better this makes SPD because Jack sticks to his guns and leaves an institution that he doesn't see as supportive enough. But here, it's really just a weird look for a franchise that has had far too many really weird looks on the racial front. And as far as I know, kindly correct me if I'm off base on this, but I don't believe there has ever been a Black or African American individual on the PR writing team, and probably not on the production side either. This isn't exclusively a criticism, it bears noting. We don't know how many Black people with the credentials even want to write for this show in a professional capacity, so it's certainly not an accusation either. But it is a way to explain how blind spots like these, and the implications that result, have been pervasive for the entirety of these 30 years. And that's bad, yes. However, for everyone maybe engaging with this topic for the first time, maybe uncomfortable with it, and for people like me who have lived through these types of discussions in personal and professional settings, let's both be cognizant of that. Don't talk over people, or for people, whose experiences directly relate to this topic, but let's also not box people out who might simply not understand the perspective we have. Our primary role here should be to educate, not castigate. So yes, it's okay to celebrate Emilia's promotion, regardless of my thoughts on her as a character. And yes, it's okay to reserve judgment on how any of this will line up until Cosmic Fury releases in full. That's fine. And yes, we collectively need to be mindful of the fact that even the aforementioned female PR leaders of the past I referenced have almost exclusively also had their roles de-emphasized or compromised, including Taylor, lest we forget. These talking points converge a lot more than they diverge, but even still, there is another side, another context to this that's also worth highlighting. And as mentioned, this isn't exclusive to Cosmic Fury, not by a long shot. The Robo Knight rap doesn't happen otherwise. Stuntmen painting their faces black to emulate the skin tones of racially black Rangers doesn't happen otherwise. And like half of Time Force's more eyebrow-raising plot points probably don't happen otherwise. That's not as direct as the other examples, but I've discussed that in detail on this channel before, so you know where I'm coming from. And there's no shortage of people that you can have those conversations with, all of whom have their Twitter handles in the description below, including my own, obviously. So yeah, converse away. And maybe next time we talk about something a bit less heavy. But until then, thanks for watching.